Hey, welcome back to Creepy Encounters. In today's video, he said he was my landlord. Craigslist ad teen girl clothes for sale. Ted Bundy copycat. Stalker next door. Were they trying to kidnap my son? I was around 12 when this happened. It was a Saturday morning and my parents were going out of town for the weekend. They left my older brother to babysit, but as soon as they left, he did too. Great brother, I know. So I'm sitting in the living room watching TV when the doorbell rings. Instead of looking through the peephole like a normal person, I fling open the door eager for company. I thought it would be my neighbor, not two middle-aged men looking down at me. Are your parents home? I don't even hesitate when I tell them no, they're actually out of town for the weekend. Holy shit, if I could slap a child I would go back and slap myself silly. They exchange glances and the older looking man says, well, I'm your landlord and we need to come inside to check a few things out. That's when I realize how much trouble I'm in. I know my landlord, he's a friend of the family and he is not either of the men standing in front of me. Thank God for quick thinking because I tell them, yes, but I need to grab something first. And before they could reply, I shut the door and deadbolt it. I run to the kitchen, grab the phone and dial my mom's number. I remember thinking, please pick up, please pick up, please pick up. She does, and the second I hear her voice, I break down sobbing. There's two guys at the front door and they want to come in. One said he's the landlord, but it's not Mario and I'm scared. Come home now. Then I hear pounding on the window. My mom hears it too because the next thing she tells me is Dad is on the phone with the police and I need you to tell them that. Shout it at the top of your lungs that the cops are on their way. They know you're home alone and they need to know you won't be for long. I'll be there in 20 minutes. My parents are an hour away and how they made it home as fast as they did, I'll never know. But through my tears, I yell as loud as I can. The cops are on their way. Hey, we weren't going to hurt you. No need to cry. It's okay, we'll leave. Then silence. It seemed like a lifetime but was no less than 10 minutes when the police arrived. I will always remember the female officer who spoke with me. She calmed me down and applauded my quick thinking on shutting the door. She told me to never open the front door again unless it was someone I knew, and even then not to do it if I was home alone, which I wasn't for a very long time after that. My parents pulled into the driveway like a bat out of hell and my mom hugged me tighter than she ever had before. I was crying, she was crying. I got a lecture on opening the door for strangers and how lucky I was to be alive, and my brother got yelled at and grounded. Not that he cared much, he moved out shortly after. The cops took a report and surveilled the area for the two men but never found them. I learned my lesson that day. I have no idea who they were or what their intentions were and I don't care to ever find out. I had just gotten out of high school and I was cleaning out my closet. I decided to post an ad on Craigslist. The title, Teen Girl Clothes for Sale. I received a few creepy messages but nothing too scary, plus I needed the money so I waited a few days for a serious buyer. That's when Annie emails me. Her message said something along the lines of, hey, can you meet in the Walmart parking lot? I'd like to buy all of your clothes today. I was so eager to sell them but I didn't want to go to a parking lot alone, so I asked my mom to come with me and she agrees. I let Annie know that I can meet any time between 5 and 7. That's when she asks for my phone number and I gave it to her. Back then I gave my number to anyone who asked. Don't do that. So I'm texting this girl trying to arrange a time to meet when she tells me that she has to wait for her mom to get home from work so she can drive her to Walmart. I'm immediately relieved because I'm thinking, okay, great, she's bringing her mom, I'm bringing mine, we're meeting in public, all is good. All was not good. We agreed to meet up at 6:30 at the far right side of the parking lot. I was excited to get rid of all these clothes and get some money too. We head to the side of Walmart, park and wait. I text her and let her know that we're there waiting, and the first red flag to leave should have been her reply. Are you alone? What kind of car are you driving? I tell her and I also let her know I'm with my mom. No response. At this point it's getting dark and I'm looking around the parking lot to see if I can find her. That's when I spot him. A young man not much older than me, in a white Nissan parked on the aisle before us with his window halfway down, staring directly at us. So I ask my mom, do you see that guy? Why is he staring? How much longer should we wait for Annie? She casually glances in his direction. Up until this point we had both been on our phones, not paying too much attention to anyone around us. I have since learned about the term situational awareness. Pay attention to your surroundings, people. I figured she would text me when she was almost there but she hadn't, so I called her. No answer. Then the man in the aisle over rolls his window all the way down, still staring, and starts to blow bubbles. Like actual bubbles. I can see him holding the container, gently blowing these bubbles in our direction. He pauses and smiles, but not a warm smile, a sinister one. My mom and I take one look at each other and I start the car. We begin to put the pieces together when we realize that this grown man in front of us is probably Annie. Not only does he have my phone number, but now he knows my car's license plate number. I'm trying not to freak out. He sees us pulling out of the parking spot and he gets out of his car and stares us down while we haul ass out of there. I was praying he wouldn't follow us. And he didn't. I guess seeing me with my mom threw him off. He thought I would be alone and I'm so grateful I wasn't. I blocked the number and never got another message from Annie. Needless to say, I didn't end up selling my clothes that day and I haven't been on Craigslist since. First time living alone in my apartment. I was walking out to my car in heels to attend an evening church service. I hear this guy saying, "Hey, hello, can you help me?" I'm standing about 10 feet away and when I stop to observe, it's this man in a wheelchair. He has one sack of groceries in his lap and two on the ground beside him. He had on what looked like veteran attire and combat boots. But what stood out to me the most is I noticed how incredibly built/buff he was. Not just his arms but his calves. The hairs on my arms and neck instantly stood up. I guess while silently observing him, he was waiting for me to walk up to him. I took a few steps back and shook my head. His immediate response was, "I'm not going to do you anything, can't you see I'm in a wheelchair?" He then pointed to his door and said, "Look, I just need help putting the bags inside my door on the floor." That's all? I declined politely and began to walk away. The screaming, cursing and insults was what made me basically run to my car. Safe in my car with the doors locked, I couldn't shake that awful feeling off of me. Fast forward to a couple of days later as I'm driving down the street headed home. Who do I see walking without a limp or a cane or with any visible disability? My heart dropped. I stayed in my app for a week, too scared to go out in case of any more encounters. To this day, this strange encounter haunts me. I was living next door to this family. Ma'am, dad, and a little girl. They seemed pretty normal, nice, just your average people. I'm a F, 21. Our gardens were right next to each other, parted with a wooden partition fence. Notice the wooden fence's partitions was beginning to come a little loose. I slept in a bedroom at the back of the house. One morning I woke to find handprints and a mouth print on the outside of my window, frosted over. I don't think I have ever experienced anything like the feeling of absolute dread that washed over me that morning. Continued all winter. Heard a lot of weird nosies. I lived in fear. During this time I began to grow more suspicious of my next door neighbor. Especially considering the wooden partition becoming loose. I just felt an overwhelming sense of fear every single time I encountered him. He gave me chills. But I had a lease to maintain, good area too. Maybe it's some kids playing a joke. As spring rolled around, I noticed John was doing some gardening, using weed killer. Lo and behold, the next day, dead grass in my garden. In the shape of footprints. From the dodgy wooden panel, to my bedroom window and back again. Confirmed everything? I took pictures, confided in my family what was happening. I just up and left that morning, packed my stuff and went. I didn't care about the lease. Nada. My whole body has goosebumps even remembering this. This was about 2 years ago. It's almost like a movie scene. It's one of the most horrible things I've ever experienced in my life. I'm the single mother to an obnoxiously adorable 7-year-old boy. This happened when he was 5 years old, in the summer of 2018, and the what ifs still haunt me. There is a beautiful park on the river that my son and I used to frequent. On this summer evening, we decided to picnic in the park for dinner. When we arrived, there were lots of families playing with their children on the playground. We found a spot in the grass near the water, laid down our big purple blanket, and began to eat. I was facing the playground, just people watching, when I noticed a group of 3 children that seemed to be alone. There were 2 boys and 1 girl, and they looked to be between the ages of 9 to 12. You know that bad feeling you get when something just doesn't feel right? These kids gave me that feeling almost instantly. I brushed it off because, well, they were only kids. My son and I were almost done eating and ready to play when some dark clouds came rolling in. We live in Florida and this is standard for a summer evening, so I decided to wait it out and see if it would pass. It did. Everyone cleared the park with the exception of the group of children that I mentioned before. It was at this point that I realized they were definitely alone. I figured they must live nearby. I took my son on the swing and these kids were just sort of hanging around near us and staring, but not saying anything. Then the youngest looking boy came up to my son on the swing and stood in front of it so that my son almost hit him while he was swinging. He just stood there. I asked him what he was doing and he did not answer. It made me super uneasy, so I took my son off the swing and over to the jungle gym on the other side of the playground. My son and I were playing on the other side of the park, and I did not see the other kids anymore, so I thought they must have left. I sat down on a bench near the jungle gym and watched my son as he played. About 10 minutes later, I looked over toward the parking lot and noticed the same group of kids were actually still at the park and were over there talking to an older man with a dog. This went on for another 5 or so minutes, and then the man and the children parted ways. The man walked down the street in the opposite direction and the children came back to the park and over to the jungle gym where my son was playing. I was still sitting on the bench, which was probably about 10 feet away from the jungle gym when those kids started hanging around and talking to my son. They were asking him lots of questions, like how old are you? And where do you go to school? He was answering while climbing around and didn't seem to be paying a whole lot of attention. I was watching the other kids the entire time this was going on because they just gave me an unwavering bad feeling, and after a few minutes they got off the jungle gym and began walking toward the road. I was so fixated on the top of their heads as they were walking away that I didn't realize my son, who was tiny, was walking with them. They were almost to the street when I screamed my son's name and he turned around and bolted back to me. I asked him where he was going and he said they had to show me something. We left immediately. I really don't know if it was sinister or not, but I can't explain the kids trying to lead my son out of the park, and I often think about what could have happened if I wasn't paying attention. Was the old man somehow involved? I spoke with my son about following the stranger danger rule with anyone he doesn't know, even if they are kids like him. We don't play at that park anymore. I drive by that park on occasion and I've seen that old man a few times, but haven't seen those children. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please like and subscribe for more real-life creepy encounters around the world. See you in the next video. Bye.